Hi guys! Welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new legal advice content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first one is titled, Homeowner Association Suddenly Demanding Payment After 33 Years. Florida. My parents have lived in the same neighborhood in Florida since 1984. According to them, when they bought the house, they were informed that there was an homeowner association, but they were not required to join unless they wanted to use the amenities in the neighborhood. They never used them, so they never joined. In 33 years, my parents never got any kind of notice for fees due or any kind of fine from the homeowner association, so they were in the clear as far as they knew. Granted, this could be a misunderstanding on my parents' part, but I highly doubt that. I had some friends growing up in the neighborhood, and while their parents moved out long ago, they weren't part of the homeowner association either. One of them absolutely hated them and specifically chose to move into that neighborhood, because she didn't have to join an homeowner association. However, my parents suddenly got a collection letter in the mail last week, demanding they owe back dues of over $500, or else they'll place a lien on the house. Sometime yesterday my dad called up the collection agency. They informed him that the homeowner association was getting better organized, so they are starting to collect fees from residents who haven't been paying. According to my dad, they weren't able to tell him why homeowner association membership was suddenly mandatory. No surprise, I guess, since it was just a collection agency. Somehow the call ended in a shouting match. The collection agency told my dad someone from the homeowner association would call him. My dad told me about this a few hours ago. He and my mother are both retired and rely on Social Security for their income. They barely have enough for food and basic living expenses. They can't afford to pay off this collection bill and definitely can't afford homeowner association fees. I already pay their property taxes every year, along with helping them out with electricity, insurance, internet, etc. They didn't ask me, but I could help them pay this collection bill if necessary. However, this whole situation seems really fishy to me. Even if membership was compulsory, and my parents just misunderstood when they bought the house, why is the homeowner association suddenly demanding money after 33 years? Unless they are the most wildly disorganized group of morons that ever existed, I highly doubt that they just forgot about my parents' property for 3 decades, especially if they could make money off of them. Another weird thing is that the back dues are only $500. I don't know how much homeowner association memberships usually cost, but research on the internet tells me they can range from $100 to $700 a month. So at most they're only charging 5 months worth of back fees. 5 months out of 33 years, really? Perhaps that means membership was only compulsory starting 5 months back, but wouldn't my parents have to sign some kind of consent form before they're allowed to start charging fees? Or at least get a phone call? Someone going to door? According to my parents, they didn't receive any notice that they had to join, nor did they get any kind of bill from the homeowner association themselves. It apparently just went straight to collections. Like I mentioned earlier, I could pay this off for them, but I'd like some advice first. I'm afraid that if I do pay the collection bill, it would be like my parents admitting that they knew they owed money the whole time. If that's the case, what's to stop the homeowner association from charging 33 years worth of fees? I tried looking for the homeowner association's contact info, but all I found was an out-of-date website with a bunch of broken links. No phone numbers, no address, not even the names of board members. There was no contact info for the homeowner association on the collection letter either. But, as I wrote earlier, someone from the homeowner association might be contacting my dad. I don't know when that is, since with Irma on its way, they obviously have more important things to worry about in the next few weeks. I'd also like to talk to them myself, since I would be the one potentially paying them. Also, as evidenced by my dad getting into a shouting match with the collection agency, I don't think he's the best one to deal with this. Update. Sorry it took so long for an update. We got distracted with repairs and getting things back in order after Hurricane Irma, so we kind of forgot about the homeowner association business for a bit. I also didn't hear anything about it from my parents for a while. After everything started to settle down, my dad and I went to the clerk of courts and got a copy of the deed. As we suspected, it indicated that my parents opted out of joining the homeowner association and waived the right to access certain lots. Around that time, my parents received a second collection letter, informing them that the amount they owed was now over $1,000 and that they had 20 days to resolve it. I then contacted a real estate lawyer near my parents. It turned out that she was very familiar with their neighborhood and knew the homeowner association had voluntary membership. This wasn't an official consultation. I just gave her a quick summary of what was going on, so she didn't actually see the deed or any of the collection letters, but she was willing to assist. I was going to talk to my parents to see if they wanted to set up a consultation with her, but it turned out they actually contacted and consulted a lawyer on their own. I haven't been too involved from that point, so the rest of this post is mostly secondhand info from my parents. The lawyer contacted the collection agency and homeowner association. She sent a FDCP letter to both, as well as another letter demanding documentation to prove my parents' obligation to pay those fees. My parents have not heard anything from the collection agency or homeowner association since those letters were sent. Until today, my grandmother and a couple relatives are visiting, and they've been staying at my parents' house. Apparently while my parents were out, someone came by with certified mail. My grandmother, who doesn't speak English and didn't understand what was going on, signed for the letter. When my parents returned, they discovered it was another bill from the Homeowner Association Collection Agency, upping the amount to over $1,500, and informing them that the Homeowner Association is going to foreclose the lien and collect that amount in 45 days. My parents saw the word foreclose and understandably freaked out. They called me up and started talking about just paying this and getting it over with, because they're terrified of losing their house. Thankfully, in this case they don't have that kind of money, and I am not about to pay a cent before their lawyer looks into this. I calmed them down and talked them into calling their lawyer tomorrow. I also made a copy of the bill and helped them send an email to their lawyer, so she'll have it to look at when they call. Obviously we're going to find out more tomorrow, but for now I have a few questions. I don't know exactly what it means to foreclose on a lien, but from what I found Googling, it looks like the homeowner association can actually take ownership of the property. Is that right, or am I misunderstanding something? Also not sure if the homeowner association or collection agency are just ignoring the lawyer or what. Can they keep sending my parents these bills after receiving the FDCP letter? And would there be any legal repercussions if my relatives refuse to sign for a certified letter? I'm a bit iffy about the fact my grandmother signed for one today, especially since she had no idea what it was. The next one is titled, "Neighbor below us knocking on our floor late at night, says that we are the problem." Manitoba. So my wife and I, along with our 3 children, are currently renting a 3-bedroom apartment. The youngest is in a crib in our bedroom, for the last 5 months. We moved to a new city and needed a place to stay until we found a new home. Our youngest is only 8 months old and still wakes up at irregular hours. When we moved in, we talked to the people below us, to do a greet and meet and explain why they might hear us moving around in the middle of the night. They were an older couple who instantly understood the situation and said that they didn't mind. Of course we tried our best not to make noise. We have also been having him try to sleep at night too. We also have a 8-year-old and a 3-year-old who occupy the other rooms across the kitchen and living room. This last week we would wake up to some noise, but our first concern would be the baby who was jolted awake and one of us would try to get it back to sleep. Then we heard what the noise was. Someone was hitting the bottom of our floor, or the top of their ceiling, every half hour. Those who have seen the episode of Friends where the guy below the cast's apartment was hitting the ceiling with a broom, that was happening to us. The next day I went to talk to them about it. It wasn't the old couple that answered the door, but a much younger guy. Guess the couple had moved out the month prior and he and his wife moved in. I asked if he could stop hitting the ceiling at night, and he responded that he was doing it because we were being too noisy. I explained that we have a baby and children in the apartment, and we have them in bed at night, but the baby is up whenever it fusses. And every time he bangs the floor he is waking the child up. His response was that he was doing it because we are stomping on the ground at all times of the night. That we are blaring music all night long. And we should be respectful of our neighbors because he is trying to sleep. He then slammed the door and locked it in front of me. Knocking on the door has had no response since, even when we know he's up and banging on the door, takes me all of 1 to 2 minutes to get to his door from my bed. We've asked the landlord to talk to him several times. He seems to listen for a night, then the next night he's back to banging at god-awful hours. We had the police over the 3rd night he's done this, but all they did was talk to him and leave, only for the banging to intensify more that night. Is there anything else that we can do? This is causing many sleepless nights and waking up our children when they should be in bed. Edit. So my wife has convinced me to try talking to the landlord and ask him to come with me to talk to this guy tomorrow afternoon. Her thinking is that if he ignores me, he can't ignore the landlord. Update. So it took months to finally get this figured out. COVID didn't help things. But the neighbors below us and their cousins who lived in the apartment block too were evicted. To recap. We have 3 children, 8, 1 and newborn at the time. Moved into the apartment on the 3rd floor. Neighbors who lived below us were slamming something onto their roof, our floor, at night, hours after we put our children to bed and we went to sleep. Noise would wake up children, which would wake us up. We complained to the landlord, and guy who lived below us claimed we were the ones who caused noise first. Would never respond to us knocking on the door or calls from us to talk about it. So a friend suggested that we install a camera with sound active and a date and time feature on it and start recording when the children were put to bed. Took a week before knocking happened. First thing we did was soothe the children, then we saved the recording. Next we went to the landlord, showed him the recording. We had proof that we were telling the truth, neighbor couldn't refute it. Landlord tried getting a hold of him, we tried to get a hold of him, no response. Wouldn't answer calls, emails, nothing. Landlord even staked out the entrance to the apartment with help from his wife and the groundskeeper for a good portion of a day. This guy was a ghost. Then came the plot twist. His cousins were also renting an apartment here. Same floor too. Cousin's last name was different from our neighbors, so no direct connection at first. Landlord decided enough was enough of trying to find this guy. He installed a camera in the hallway in a spot that pointed completely down the hallway. Finally caught him coming out of a different apartment to return to his apartment for an hour or so late at night. He'd be there for a couple hours and then return to this other apartment. If it was a night where he slammed something on his ceiling / our floor, the video showed him all but run down the hallway. Short version, both the guy below us, his girlfriend who was living with him, his cousin and his roommate were all given eviction notices. I watched as they got a moving van loaded with stuff this week. Landlord scolded them, and if they made any noises they would lose their deposit. The last one is titled, "My wife lied to police, under oath in court and in civil court about the neighbor's dog attacking her." What happens now? My wife got into a dispute our neighbor after she moved in over a fence, specifically the fact that our neighbor put up a fence on her property where there was not one before, leaving less room for our kids to play because it was an open space before. One day the police called me at work and told me my wife was attacked by a dog and was in the hospital. She was injured from being bitten multiple times by the dog, which had escaped from the neighbor's yard and attacked her while she was taking the garbage out. Animal control seized the dog and our neighbor had to go to court. After my wife testified about what happened, our neighbor showed video of her backyard, which showed my wife climbing the fence and hitting the dog with a stick until it bit her, then running out of the yard and leaving the gate open. She lied about the dog escaping and attacking her. I had no idea my wife lied. She has been arrested and charged with animal cruelty, perjury, filing a false police report and trespassing. She also filed a civil lawsuit against our neighbor, who is now counter-suing. I don't condone what she did and I was in no way involved. We are still trying to retain a lawyer and the police say more charges could be filed. There is also the countersuit to deal with. Everything is happening so fast. Again, I am not condoning what she did or saying anyone else is to blame. Under Virginia law, what kind of penalties is my wife facing? What other things could she be charged with? I will support her because I love her, but I won't defend her actions or try to blame anyone else. Update. New charges. Originally my wife was charged with 3 misdemeanors, trespassing, animal cruelty and filing a false report with the police, and a felony, perjury. An additional charge of making a threat, a felony, followed soon after, and now she has been charged with destruction of property and intending to poison our neighbor's dog. Sorry, I am not sure of the exact wording yet. The police have informed me that she could also face drug charges depending on the class of drugs she procured. I think both of these new charges are also felonies and the drug charge would be too. As I said in my first post, I don't condone at all what she did and I don't defend her actions in any way. I love her and want to support her, but I won't claim she's innocent here. We haven't had any money, marriage or family problems or illnesses. My wife had recently had an MRI on her head and blood work and an annual physical showed nothing. This came out of left field. I know I could be perceived as being in denial about her being mentally ill, but what she has done has shocked everyone we know, and no one I have spoken to can believe it. She will be having a mental health assessment by a jail psychiatrist soon. Right now I am trying to work through my confusion and doing my best to make this as easy for my children as possible. I am dealing with getting her a lawyer and trying to find a solution to the countersuit to the civil suit my wife had filed. Understandably, our neighbor is extremely upset. Her dog was injured and the vet bills will be quite expensive, I imagine, and as well there is the emotional and property damage. My children and I are staying with other family for now. Thank you to everyone who has offered support and kind messages. None of this has been easy and there is a long road ahead. With these new charges, does anyone have any idea of what kind of penalties my wife is now facing? Thanks for listening.